for what seems like 1,000.
All right. Hey there, everyone. How's it going? Yeah. So today, I'll just kind of give a quick demo of what's expected for the project 2. So we'll kind of go over drawing some thumbnails, then how to take that into Adobe Illustrator and start tracing that up. Did you guys get the email yesterday about videos you should be up to date on?
I did not receive that email.
Did not receive that email. All right. I'll just put a link here in the chat.
Okay.
Let me pull it up really quick. So you guys really got to be practicing with that pen tool. Has anyone been practicing with the pen tool so far?
A little bit.
A little bit. All right, so here's the pen tool videos. And I sent, they're on Canvas, and I also sent them in that email yesterday, that folder with a bunch of different documents that you can follow along with to practice with the pen tool. So really, you just have to get used to tracing different shapes with the pen tool. The videos start out with very simple things to trace, just kind of some curved lines, things like that. And then eventually it'll get to more and more difficult, unusual, but interesting shapes that you'll need to be able to trace over with that pen tool, okay? So it'll take a little time just to get used to that. And that's basically the point of this second project, is to get you used to that process of going from a thumbnail sketch to final digital art in Illustrator. All right, so let's just start here. We'll kind of do a little demo of thumbnail sketching and then taking that thumbnail sketch into Illustrator. All right. Okay, so you'll need, I think it's 15 thumbnails. 15, I believe, is what it was.
That's what it says, yeah.
Yep, 15, okay. Sorry, just a sec, my tablet's a little glitching right now. Oh my goodness. All right, there we go. All right, so what are some things, as you guys start to sketch your thumbnails, what are some things that I will want to see in your thumbnail sketches?
Rule of 3?
Yep. Rule of 3 or symmetrical, so you can use both. And probably good to try both in your thumbnails. What else? What else will I be looking for in thumbnails?
Line variation?
Yep.
Hey, where's everyone else today?
Yeah.
A focal point, right?
Yes, focal point. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Focal point. Anything else?
Leading lines.
Yep. So those are kind of the main things I'll be looking for in this. So as you do 15 thumbnails, think about all these things. And then when you choose, select which one you want to do. You'll choose the one that demonstrates these different things the best, okay? So you can do abstract or representational. I would suggest doing one of both. You know, I'm not going to count it either way. If you're more comfortable with abstract, so you don't have to worry about drawing actual things, do an abstract one. If it would interest you more to do representational, do that way. Or if you're kind of unsure, try both. Oh yeah, and then for next week, sorry, before we go further with the demo, you'll just be working on your projects for the most part. So I'm going to make a class discussion next week, and we're going to use that for critiques. Okay, so I'll probably post it probably on Sunday, but you can post anytime your work anytime from Sunday until probably Wednesday or Thursday before the project's due, and just post your work in progress. So anything that you want to get some feedback on and share with the class. So maybe you post your thumbnails, maybe you post the start of your digital work. The more you can post, and then I'll respond to each one of those and give suggestions and feedback. I encourage you guys to look at each other's work, and you can give suggestions and feedback on each other's work as well as we're working, okay? So I'll send that out in an email on Sunday, since we won't have Zoom classes next week. And then I think what I'll try and do on Friday is just have, before the assignments due at 4, so maybe around 2 o'clock or something, I'll just have an open office hour. So I'll just have Zoom up for like an hour if anyone has any last minute questions or wants any suggestions before the project's due. It won't be required to come to, but it's just kind of like a last check-in if you need any help with the assignment or anything like that, okay?
So is the project due next Friday then?
Yep.
Oh, okay, because it says on Canvas that it's due Wednesday.
Oh, does
Yeah,
it?
it does.
Oh, sorry about that. Let me change that to Friday. Write this down.
We're all gonna turn it in late.
Yeah, I'll change that after class.
All right, sounds good.
All right. There we go. All right. So let's just do the very simple version here. So know your focal point and kind of draw that first. So we'll just do an abstract version. Here's my abstract focal point. And you can just fill this in with other shapes as we were doing last class. You put a nice circle around there. And then some leading lines. And thinking about value. So if you have an overall light composition, making your focal point dark will help it to stand out. Let's do a simple focal point for this one. So you can also play around with making your focal point larger or smaller. So you can have a very big focal point. Maybe we put a really nice thick line around it to make it stand out. Then you have different lines leading into that focal point. And I believe also on the Canvas, there's that requirement. So each digital piece of art has to have 15 shapes, 3 different types of lines, and 1 shape that's pure black and 1 shape that is pure white. Okay. So be thinking about that as you're sketching. So I'm sketching here on my tablet in Photoshop, but you guys will be doing this on paper in pen or pencil. You can use a combination of pen and pencil is usually a nice way to do it. So you want to mix big shapes and small shapes together. We could do a representational one. Let's just have a weird little car be our focal point. So let's put the car down here. If you want to do that representation, maybe then we put a little exhaust smoke coming from the back as a leading line. That's some leading lines on the ground here. And some buildings here in the background. Maybe we have like some little things hanging out the windows that can act as leading lines as well. Okay, so again, those thumbnails, don't be spending too long on each one. Each one shouldn't take more than, 5-10 minutes. If you're doing that, you're probably getting too many details in there. And you can also combine abstract and representational. So if you could have, abstract shapes behind a representational focal point as well. So I'm going to make this card darker so it stands out. Okay. And maybe here we have a character-like shape, but we can turn this into kind of more abstract shapes as well, even if it kind of looks like a person. So maybe we play with one that's all symmetry as well. Make that dark so it stands out. All right. That's kind of how you'll go through the sketching process of that. Usually start with focal point, add in other shapes, add in leading lines, and then make that focal point light or dark depending on the rest of the shapes in your composition. So let's choose one of these and we'll take it into Illustrator and see how it looks. So for me, I'm just going to save it here as a JPEG. So for you guys, what you will do is you'll take a photograph of that work there. So I'll create a new document here in Illustrator. Oh yeah, the template. All right, and so here's this file. Where did it go? All right, so there I just dropped that right in there. What's nice about an Illustrator, where did that go? You can crop your artwork in Illustrator. So that's using this properties panel right here. If it's not there, then it's under window properties. Window properties. And I can then do crop image. And I think there's a video of this as well on YouTube to have this repeated. Let's do the, which one should we do? Let's do a little car one, I guess. And it's kind of nice. So you can just fit that box right around there, hit enter or return, and it will crop it. Stretch it out so it fits. All right, so this is the biggest thing, is setting this up to be able to start tracing over these shapes. Is setting up your layers in a way that makes sense. Window layers. So it's right here. So what I need to do is whatever you're tracing over, you put that on its own layer and then you convert that to a template layer. So I'm going to double click here, check template, hit OK. So now this layer is locked and it's also dimmed, and it also has some other features which I'll show you in just a sec after making that a template layer. So I'm going to The general way I work in these is background to foreground and big shapes to small shapes, okay? So background to foreground. So in the background there, I see the sky and clouds. So that's kind of the shapes that are the furthest back. And I'm gonna divide up kind of each level of this into different layers. So you wanna keep kind of sections of your illustration and your artwork on these separate layers. So this one, I'm going to change the name of this to Sky and Clouds, okay? So for every piece of art I do, the layer setup is slightly different. Yours is always gonna be slightly different than mine, but just kind of try and find what works best for you as you're working. So I'm gonna put down a big light gray value for the sky. But I just covered up my sketch, right? So how do I see my sketch so I can grab my pen tool and start tracing over those shapes? Well, making this a template layer allows me to then hit Control Y or Command Y, and then I can see through that shape. So the shape is still here. You can see the rectangle, but I can see through it. I only see the edge of this. So now I can zoom in and start tracing over this cloud shape. And then I'll hit Command Y again. There's that shape, but it's the same color as the sky. So I need to have this shape selected, and then change the color or the value of that actually. So now there it is. And usually I will start on these and just create shapes with no stroke. Okay, so there is the shape and it has no stroke around it. And then I'll go back and add strokes just on shapes that are more important. So focal point, usually I'll put a stroke around it, or shapes that are closer in the foreground. All right, so back to my pen tool. And you notice I'm making this go outside of the frame and not worrying about what happens when it goes behind that building. So I'm hitting Control Y again so I see what it looks like. I'll do this one other one down here. Okay, zoom back out, see how it's looking. Oops. Okay, we got the clouds and the sky there. So let's call that layer done for now. So I will lock that one. Then I'm gonna make a new layer. This one I think will be buildings. So let's call this one buildings because I'm just coming forward. Now the buildings are the next thing in the background. Okay, Command Y so I can see through it. Switch the pen tool. And this shape now is really easy because it's a straight edge shape. So straight edge shapes are always going to be easier than those curved ones. Oops. I should have started with this building in the background, but that's okay. All right, so I want the value of this building to be darker than the sky. So I'm going to just change this so it's a little bit darker. Maybe even darker than that. There we go. All right, now let's do this other building right here. All right, I'm gonna make it a little bit lighter than the other building. All right, but it's on top of that building. So that's why I build background to foreground. So then all the shapes are in the correct order, but it's not always gonna work out. So I can come down here to my layer and expand that and drag this shape here below the other building shape. So now I've just put them in the correct order.
Ta-da.
Exactly, ta-da. Let's do, so now it's coming up just to kind of decision making. I don't have to do the telephone poles here, but I can. Okay, so I want these to be darker. So you can select multiple shapes at once and change all their value at once. So I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to click on each one of these shapes. So this one here, hold shift, click on the other two. Now they're all selected. Now I can, since they're all selected, you can double click this and change all of their value at once for that fill. Okay. And another thing I can do, so right now these are all individual shapes. What I can do is group these shapes together. So I know that these are going to be my telephone pole shapes and I want them to stay together. So I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to hold shift, click on all these three shapes, then go up here to object and click group. That's going to group all these objects together so then they stay together as I'm working on the rest of the document. So group there. So as you can see here in the layers, it was changed to a group now. So that grouping is reflected in my layers, and now I can move this around, resize it, do whatever I want to it, but it will continue to keep all those shapes together. Okay, Command Y. You know what? I got another telephone pole over here. I just built a telephone pole. I'm just gonna select that, Control C, Control V, save myself some time. Now I can put this telephone pole, resize it, rotate it a little bit. So I just saved myself some time there by copying and pasting that grouped shape. All right. And so there's more details on here like windows and things like that, but I'm gonna come back to those shapes later on. Okay, so remember, big shapes to small shapes. I want to build this all up kind of evenly first. Now I'm going to make a new layer and call this car and ground. Command Y. So a nice curve here for the ground plane. Command Y. It's a little bit darker. There we go. And now I got to go in and trace my focal point shape, the car. So this is why you got to get familiar with that pen tool. It's the easiest way to trace all these unusual shapes once you get used to the tool. It's a very good tool. It just has a bit of a learning curve. For the wheels, I'll just go and use my ellipse tool for the wheels. Copy and paste that a few times. And then zoom out. All right. So all the major shapes are kind of there now at this point. So it's good to build it up evenly like this. And now I'll kind of just go back layer by layer and add those smaller shapes and smaller details. So I'll go back to my buildings, add some windows, go back to the ground plane, add some of these little trash can-like shapes, all that sort of stuff. So I'll just do a little bit more on the car to show you guys. Some windshields on here. All right, but all my windows are black or dark values. So I have to be careful that you don't, sometimes you'll lose these shapes if they're the same value as whatever they're overlapping. So I need to make sure to quickly change these to a nice light value so they stand out. There we go. We'll put some little ones down here for headlights. So I don't expect it to it will change as you make it digital. So don't worry about if things are changing. That will happen. You'll notice little things that need fixing as you work on that portion of the project. So the rough sketch gives you a good guide to go from, but it will end up changing as you work. All right. So I'm gonna call this kind of good for now. So yeah, if this was one of your projects or I was doing this for a different purpose, I would go in and continue to add some more details. Add these little trash can shapes, add the lamp on here, some windows and details in the buildings, just to kind of build this up so there's a few more shapes and a little bit more complexity in there. But as far as the demo, I think this is far enough for you guys to kind of see that process. But you always want to separate those different planes on your layers and lock your layers as you're going. So when you're done working on the buildings, lock that one. When you're done working on the sky, lock that. But as you guys can see here, all of my shapes go way outside my frame. Okay, so the ground plane like swerves way out of here. The buildings go up out of the frame. So what I need to do in order to have these all fit in a nice frame is use a clipping mask, So this video here, no, where's the clipping mask video? So this video here shows you how to do these clipping masks. There. All right. So you'll have to watch this video. Clipping masks are a little tricky, but they are very good for cleaning up your drawing and getting it ready for presentation to turn in. So basically what I'll do is just put a rectangle on top of everything that matches the frame on my sketch. I usually like to put that as a value that I can see. So now I can see that that rectangle is physically on top of everything. So here I just put it on its own layer. I'm going to now turn off that layer 1. I no longer need that sketch. Everything is unlocked that I want to be in the clipping mask. All these shapes will be in the clipping mask. I select everything that I want in the clipping mask. So that's all these shapes from 4 different layers. And right click and say make clipping mask. And now it fits in there really nicely. So all we need now is a little border on there. So all I do is put a black rectangle on top and flip it over so I have a stroke and no fill. Turn that up a little thicker. Now I have a nice piece of artwork in my clipping mask with a frame around it. Okay, so this is the main process that you are going to have to get used to, putting your sketch on that template layer, tracing your shapes, and then eventually when it is done, adding that clipping mask on there. Any questions with that process?
Nope.
Has anyone started practicing that at all?
Not really, no.
Not really. All right. Well, okay. So get going with that. And then what I have here, I'm going to show you guys this as well. Thumbnails. Okay. Is a template file. I will send this to you guys after class. Let me go back to screen share. So this is a file here with 5 artboards in it. And this is what you will use to present your work and save it as a PDF to turn into. So this has these 5 artboards on here. Each one has a consistent title, as you can see, or the little header, and then also the title for what I'm looking at. So you have 2 pages here for your thumbnails, some final art there, and your written reflection there. So what you will do is then you can go over here and take this and hit Control C for copy. Come over here. And hit Control V for paste, and then put your final artwork there, okay? And then the same thing with your sketches. So then you can display your thumbnails there. You may need both of them, you may not, okay? So just fill up this template with all your work, and then you will save this as a PDF, and it will be saved with 5 pages in there with your thumbnail sketches, your final art, and then your written reflection, okay? The biggest thing for the written reflection is just draw a box with that type tool and copy and paste your text in here. Type your text in a word processor, Word or Google Docs, and then paste it in there, because the word processing programs are much better at catching spelling and grammar mistakes and things like that. All right, so after class, I will send you guys this template so you have this to turn in or to present all your work with. And we'll go from there. So I'm gonna upload this video to our YouTube channel. I think we have, so this one too, there's a project demo one here and assembling everything in the template and saving it as a PDF. So these videos right here will kind of go over all those steps that we just talked about if you need that when you're getting ready to turn stuff in, okay? Any questions about any of this process? All right, well, that's all I have for today. So yeah, next week, you'll kind of just be working on this project. We'll do a critique through the discussions next class. Get up to date on all those videos. So watch all the pen tool ones and practice those steps. Watch the one on Clippy Mass. And then there's those demo videos showing you how to kind of complete this second project, okay? And yeah, so we'll do a critique next week, and I'll try and have a little optional lab out or office hours if you guys have any like last minute questions on Friday before the project's due, okay?
Sounds good to me.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. Let me know if anyone has questions before they log off. But other than that, I won't see you guys for any official Zoom classes, but and then I'll be available for email after Tuesday tomorrow. So Wednesday and Thursday, I'll be able to check email and stuff if you guys any questions come up as you're working.
All right, sounds good. See you later.
Yep. Have a good one.